Good evening again. I'd like to call the community of the whole for the Village of Cary for March 3rd, 2026 to order with roll call, please.
Collier,
Here.
Dudek,
Here.
McAlpine,
Here.
Persina,
Here.
Stefani,
Here.
Walworth is absent, Kounick.
I am here. Please join me again in the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll now move to the public comment, where the public is given an opportunity to address the community of the whole on anything other than what's on the agenda. Again, we ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes. Ginny Palumbo. Are you here to talk about New Haven?
I'm just going to make a comment about it. That's all.
Okay, because if you want to talk, we're going to go more in depth in the next item on the
Right,
agenda.
but one of the comments I want to make is the opening of New Haven,
Okay.
and that's not on the agenda. It's
Well,
the calming.
it could be part of that. It's part of the agenda.
But I know you all sat up here in your grand little seats. I just want to let you know, I had my house on the market. I lost a sale because of opening of New Haven. Just want you to all be aware of that.
Did you sell your house?
I ended up selling it, but I did have a contract that they pulled it, they yanked it, because they started looking into it and said, New Haven's being open, there's gonna be more traffic, so they yanked their contract.
Okay. Well,
So there's gonna be
congratulations
more
on
of
selling
those.
it.
There's
Thank you.
gonna be more of those.
I had no idea what this. Is it Chris Reike? It's not your usual signature.
No, I didn't print that nice.
Yeah, you did not.
Okay, you know who I am. My name is Chris Reiki, 446 Lloyd Street. It looks like what you want to do here, you want to put some raised crosswalks. What about putting in some speed bumps like they have on Harrison in Algonquin? They were well marked, so I know your excuse would be that they're hard on the snowplows, but they've been there for years. They're 3 feet wide all across the road. Slows the cars down. Put some of those in there, because these speedometer signs, you can see how fast you're going, but that's not going to necessarily slow anybody down. I know
Okay, Chris, I'm going to ask you to hold your comments till we get to this part, because we're going to have a presentation about, hopefully answer some of your questions, and I'll give everybody an opportunity to bring their conversation back after the presentation's been made. Sergio? You wait too. Rich Yell? Okay, thank you. All right, our first item to discuss is a food truck requirements discussion. Pardon me? Oh, I'm sorry. Is there anybody else that wants to address the committee of the whole? We'll go ahead and close that at 6:33. And now moving to food truck requirements.
Thank you, Mayor. As the village board may remember, it was back in June of 2025, we discussed food trucks at length, specifically in the downtown and also allowing them at Cary Lake. As you can see on the screen displayed here, we have our current regulations that display private property and public property. And then based on feedback from the committee of the whole, private property, we're going to recommend to keep the current regulations. The village board directed staff to look at decreasing permit fees. Based on some research amongst the surrounding municipalities, you can see the city of McHenry charges $25 per day. Crystal Lake does $50, but it's an annual fee. Lake in the Hills, $100, and then included McHenry County is another idea for the board to consider. Right now, we have no permit fees recommended for food trucks that have existing brick and mortar business or physical location in Cary. Oh, sorry, that's my breath. And we're also recommending to expand food trucks to be allowed at Cary Lake, continue to limit to Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, and then propose the 2 downtown locations to remain the same, but also including Cary Lake only on paved surfaces only. I'd be willing to open it up for discussion to the village board on this feedback.
Anybody want to take a shot at this?
I'll take a shot. Couple quick things. When we have the proposed approved locations and how many, obviously things like Main Street Fest are going to be an exception to that. Cary Cruise Nights are going to be an exception to that. There's going to be certain events that we have exceptions that are still going to stay. Correct? We're not looking to change anything like that. I personally, I wouldn't mind us going to an annual permit versus just a day per day, and tightening that up a little bit. If we did $50 annually, I think we meet the objective of getting the permitting done, but we're not also putting undue burdensome. If someone wants to continue to, maybe they have success with that and they want to continue with that and have to come each time and pay a fee to do that. So I'm open to that. I still think it's going to be a continued business. That type of business is growing, and I think we want to encourage it. I think it's pretty fun and exciting to see some of the new ones that are coming out. And I'm trying to think, did we do anything, were we considering waiving the fee if they were a part of, that we're getting the tax dollars from them? That they're part of the village, that they're paying tax dollars, weren't we waiving the fees on that?
So we did look into that, and I think Brian might be able to give a short explanation on the complex
Okay, so maybe
complexities
okay.
behind it.
Yeah, it's the option for the no permit fee for the brick and mortar locations that have a physical location in town is kind of how we're trying to address that. It's very difficult to track or have a specific mobile food trucks collect all their sales taxes in one location. But if they have a physical location in the community, we're waiving the fee from that standpoint.
Okay. That's all I have on that.
Trustee Pacino, you look like you're ready to say something.
Just a clarifying point. The McHenry County annual, is that on top of the local municipality fees that we're talking about here?
No.
Okay. So
Is that for someone that's not they're unincorporated?
It's for unincorporated.
there we go. Thank you. That was sort of the light bulb that I was looking for. Much appreciated.
It was bright, yeah.
I'd like to see just an annual fee, $50.
$50, yeah.
Becomes burdensome, kind of, with that for staff and food truck.
Trustee Stefani?
Second that. I think annual is fine.
Trustee Dudek? And part of this process is to make sure that they're certified through the health department. We're making sure that everybody is running a legitimate business, and we'll be good with that. I agree.
The
I
health
think-
department is good for the year, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I'm good with this.
The 2-truck maximum is just because we don't have enough room? Was that the thought behind that?
Correct. For the
tent.
downtown, correct.
But we can get exceptions if we have an event going on.
Right. Well, for the open areas, if you're looking at the A and B, we're just having one at each space, but I think the B spot could essentially have 2.
Okay, I'll go on record again as saying I think we ought to have a cruise night of food trucks. I said it last year. Say it again.
Cary Lake, we're not restricting the amount? And they're on parked only, but then you limit parking over there, or no?
So Cary Lake, what we'll do from here, based on the direction from the village board,
See how
we'll
it goes.
we'll put an ordinance together. But what we'll be recommending is that food trucks only for reservations of the pavilion for special events there, family gatherings, things like that. So we'll probably recommend maybe 2 or 1, so it doesn't take up too much space.
Okay, that was my concern. Thank you.
Who's taking the notes on this one? Brian, are you writing this down? You got your information you need? It's all up here? Okay. So essentially, we $50 annually.
Got it. Thank you, village board, for that.
Okay. And now moving to the final discussion regarding New Haven Drive traffic calming improvements. Brian?
Thank you, Mayor. The item before the board this evening is this continuation of discussion that we had last fall related to the Seasons of Carry development that was approved for the what's known as the Damis property on Route 31. As the board, the public recall, as part of that project, the board approved the extension of New Haven Drive out to Route 31. One of the conditions of the zoning entitlements for that project was to develop a traffic calming plan for New Haven Drive, and that plan to be reviewed and approved by the village engineer prior to the issuance of a permit for the project. So what we're bringing before the board this evening is just overview of the plan that staff worked on with the development team, which does have members here this evening as well in case there are specific questions regarding planned improvements. But also just want to highlight that the focus of tonight's discussion is really just on the traffic calming measures that are proposed. It's not discussion regarding the extension of the roadway or the development. We really want to focus on the improvements, get feedback from the board if there are any potential changes that are necessary for it, but wanted to get general concurrence from the board this evening on the plan improvements so that we can continue to work with the developer on finalizing plans for the permits. When designing the traffic calming plan, which you can see on the screen here, and I'll have other screens that'll summarize specific portions of the roadway, the general intent was to make sure that the improvements are scaled for the neighborhood. There's various elements that can be utilized for traffic calming measures. We want to make sure that they were appropriate applications in this area along New Haven Drive with the existing residential character of the neighborhood. One of the goals was to try to maximize on-street parking availability. So as traffic calming measures are implemented, there will be a reduction of potential on-street locations where individuals may park. We want to maximize the number of spaces that would still be available to residents in the area should there be a need for on-street parking. Also, one of the provisions was to limit any improvements to be within the existing right-of-way limits so that any improvements would not require the acquisition of additional land to make those improvements feasible. Finally, with this work being performed with the development, the village is also looking at a planned resurfacing of New Haven Drive. It's due for resurfacing. To work with the developer on coordinating that schedule as far as when those improvements would be performed, either later this year or early next when the roadway is resurfaced. So to highlight the proposed improvements, I'll break the New Haven Drive into 3 segments essentially. So this is the northern segment, which is closer to the Stryker property in Georgetown Drive. There are various elements that are proposed along the roadway, some of which are already existing on the property, or not on the property, on the roadway. The upper left-hand portion of the slide, you'll see there's various physical elements that we're proposing for changes to the roadway, which include lane narrowing, the creation of some additional pavement markings on the roadway to create 2 lanes of traffic plus a parking lane. That improvement currently does exist on the eastern segment of New Haven Drive along the New Haven townhomes. So essentially from Danbury Drive to Georgetown Drive. So that section of the roadway would not have new modifications made to it, but we would continue the striping into the Cambria subdivision from the western entrance to Danbury Drive through the entire Cambria subdivision. And then other improvements that would be proposed at that transition from the Cambria townhomes to the New Haven townhomes would be creating a lateral shift in the roadway. So there would be an island created in the center of the roadway that would delineate traffic to shift the parking lane from the south side of New Haven Drive as you're traveling westbound from Georgetown to the north side of New Haven Drive because there's more driveways for townhomes on that first segment as you first drive into the Cambria subdivision. And then as you get to the curve, there would be another lateral shift constructed at that location that would then shift the parking and traffic back to the opposite side of the roadway. The proposed parking configuration for that northern segment from the curve to Georgetown Drive would equate to about 62 vehicles that could still park on the roadway based on what striping would be occurring from that standpoint. Other improvements that would be also proposed, we do have currently a speed radar sign that is installed on New Haven Drive as you drive into the Cambria subdivision. Additional sign would be installed for eastbound traffic as well, so as you're traveling that segment of the roadway, you would have a sign that would be detecting speeds going in either direction in the roadway. Other improvements which would be performed primarily along Georgetown would include the installation of no truck signage to reiterate that no trucks are permitted within the residential area, and then trailblazer signage which would direct traffic leaving the Cimarron subdivision or Industrial Drive or Stryker driveways on how to access Route 31, so they would not be utilizing New Haven Drive. They would go out to be directed out to Three Oaks Road and then be able to access Route 31 via the signal at Three Oaks and 31. Before I move on, is there any questions regarding the proposed traffic calming improvements for this segment? Moving on to the next segment. This would be just an image of the lateral shift, what would be proposed. So there'd be a landscaped or median constructed in the center of New Haven Drive, and then pavement markings would be delineating the change in parking lanes from one side to the other. This image does show some landscaping in those outside perimeters, but through discussions with the developer and staff, we determined that pavement markings on the outside were appropriate based on potential impacts to drainage to this area as well. Now moving on to the central segment. Again, the first segment would be on the right-hand side of this image behind the Stryker property, but other improvements that would be performed on this segment with the proximity of the number of driveways that are in this area. There was limited physical improvements that you can make as far as not having the ability from another lateral shift to shift parking from one side to the other, because all the townhomes are on the west side of the property. We did look at some other improvements potentially for improvements at intersections, but the impacts for those physical improvements were impacted by the location of driveways. So generally for this segment of roadway, we were looking to add the parking restrictions on one side with the striping, a parking lane, and then adding some speed radar signs in the center of the block, so that would help regulate the speeds of vehicles that are traveling down that roadway in both directions. So there'd be a sign that would be facing both northbound and southbound. And then as you were to access near Hoffman Park, they proposed to install a raised crosswalk, which would be, as the resident mentioned, will be a vertical transition for vehicles to travel over, almost like a speed hump. So it would have a slowing effect for vehicles to go over that. It will be designed so that emergency vehicles and snowplows will be able to adequately get through that area as well. And then with that crossing, you would have additional signage. In this particular location, we're proposing a pedestrian beacon similar to what's out here at the intersection of Georgetown and New Haven Drive, so that it would be pedestrians can accentuate or push a button to access a signal that would alert drivers to their presence crossing the roadway. And with this segment, again, from the western lateral shift by the Stryker location all the way to Montclair Drive, there would still be about 87 parking spaces for vehicles on the roadway. Right. And this slide just shows proposed location for that raised crosswalk with the warning beacon and what that may look like as constructed. finally, the southern segment of the roadway, basically from Montclair Drive to the Seasons Carry development. There's some additional planned improvements for this area, again, focusing on the lane narrowing with the pavement markings with parking on the opposite side of New Haven Drive from the existing townhome driveways. Staff is proposing with the developer another raised crosswalk next to New Haven Park. This one would just have pedestrian signage, would not have the beacon signal to it, just due to the amount of traffic, vehicle individuals that would be crossing that location. And then truck restriction signage from the development into the Cambria subdivision, so that any vehicles that are accessing New Haven Drive from the western end would also be restricted from driving through the Cambria subdivision. And then finally, the modifications for the existing cul-de-sac at the end of New Haven Drive. The proposal is to modify that into a traffic circle. So again, you would have a lateral shift for vehicles going through that location to help slow speeds through that area. And then, but that would reduce the amount of pavement in that cul-de-sac, would create a center island within the cul-de-sac to create that traffic circle design. And with this segment of the roadway, again, there'd be another 35 parking spaces on street for potential vehicles. So in total, from Georgetown Drive to the existing cul-de-sac, there'll still be parking for about 185 vehicles on the roadway. The next slide just shows the proposed design at this point for that cul-de-sac and how the existing cul-de-sac bulb would be converted to a traffic circle. In the center portion of this image would be a landscape island, so there would be additional pavement removed and have additional greenery added to that location. The final locations for bike paths and sidewalks would still be finalized as the design moves forward. But I was looking for that bike path on the north end to be continued through directly out to Route 31. So in general, that's a summary of the overall proposal for traffic calming as of this time. As mentioned, staff has been working with the developer and their team on these plans. Both are in agreement as far as the proposal before the board this evening. Happy to answer any questions the board may have. Again, the developer does have their design team here as well. If there's additional technical questions, we're happy to assist in the discussion.
Thank you. Would the developer like to add any input to this before we ask the residents for their input?
Hi, good evening. My name is Tony DeRosa, Fiduciary Real Estate Development, 789 North Water Street, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. Brian gave a great overview. We have our traffic consultant and our traffic engineer tonight here with us. So if you have any technical questions, I'd be happy to have them come up at the appropriate time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'll open it up to, you want to talk to? Oh. Open up for resident comment. The only person that signed in to talk about this is Chris Reike. Do you want to come up and ask your question, Chris?
We've also got Sergio from earlier.
Oh, and Sergio too.
Okay.
And Rich.
You have the two raised crosswalks down by the park. What about down further, putting one or two, even if there was a crosswalk, raising that area? I mean, speed bumps are fine, but I mean, you're putting crosswalks there that are okay with the snow plows. What about making a couple crosswalks down further also? Those those yellow lights that you push the button, people don't always stop for those. So you can push by law they're supposed to, but they don't always stop for those. But what about the possibility about putting a couple more raised areas before that curve, some speed bumps or something, some raised pavement.
Right, I'll ask the consultants if they think that is warranted in that particular area. I think we're going to have other crosswalks that are just marked. They're not going to be raised. I don't know if it's needed in there because it's really not going to any other public areas. It's up towards the north end of that, off of New Haven. That's really servicing the back end of Sage or Stryker. So I don't know if that's necessary.
Tony, you can add to this if you like, but you might recall at our previous discussions, we had mentioned the different options and described some of the pros and cons, and particularly with raised crosswalks, we mentioned that they have effectiveness, but only at the location at which they're installed. So they obviously aren't doing a continuous calming effect on the whole roadway. So we only suggest them at spots where you actually do have concentrated or maybe increased likelihood of pedestrians crossing it, because that's the location where the friction and the conflict would exist. To put them in just random, or not random, but just places throughout the corridor aren't effective overall for traffic calming because they only make cars slow down at that one spot, and then they inevitably will just speed up to make up time as human nature. One of the things that we did in preparing for and analyzing this topic, just to make sure that we were certain on our position and reaffirming kind of our opinions on it, Capital Projects Manager Ward and I did a field trip to Algonquin, and we met with our counterparts over there. They had installed some various traffic calming measures similar to this and gave us their experience and pros and cons. They did actually cite the locations on Harrison and Algonquin with the speed tables and the speed bumps, noting that their experience with them and observations were that they were not effective because of the very reasons I just mentioned. They actually had some locations in other parts of town that they removed because of their ineffectiveness, and they replaced them with things like the lane narrowing, actually, which was the example on, I think it's Bunker Hill Drive, that they said it was the most effective. So what we were already doing here in town in other locations and places that I in my career have installed in other communities, that seems to be the kind of the industry standard for cost-effective but actual positive results for traffic calming. So again, we could consider locations elsewhere in this corridor for more raised crosswalks, but our staff opinion is that we would only suggest them where we do have higher concentrations of pedestrians to minimize the negative impacts for things like snowplows and to also avoid the negative side effect of cars speeding up between those bumps.
I understand where public comment is going on. May I ask a question in the meantime before we call up? Just wanted to get a little more feedback on the train of thought. If I'm honest, I would almost prefer that both of the raised crosswalks have the beacons. Was there a specific reason why the entry to Hoffman Park one was without the beacon? The only reason why I feel like I prefer it, I understand there's an added cost involved in that, but it provides another, it's a belt and suspenders sort of an approach on those crosswalks where it is not only a safe place to cross, a designated place to cross near a park, but it gives the vehicles that additional warning that somebody's there. I just wanted to know if there was a reason why we only selected beacons at one out of the two.
Brian?
Yeah, it was, from a design perspective, there's a lot more pedestrian traffic at the Hoffman Park location than there is at the Cambria Park location. So it was more focused at a location where you have a higher crossing from that standpoint. But, and then simultaneously due to the cost of having two installations within a short distance.
And there are costs to maintaining them and operating them as well. So
Okay.
it's not a one-time cost.
I understand. Thank you.
Sergio?
Yes, I'm a resident of 1464 New Haven Drive, and the fact that we're thinking about calming measures only tells me that what the community was saying before when we were asking not to connect New Haven Drive to 31 is because that was going to increase the traffic in New Haven Drive. So this confirms that the community had the reason and the decision makers didn't listen to the community. That's already done. So regarding this, I agree that there's nothing we can do about that. But regarding this, the thing that we're doing or that are being proposed to do is actually not going to slow the traffic. Studies in United Kingdom has demonstrated that narrowing the roads actually reduce the speed of traffic. What we're doing here is we're telling the drivers, this is a speed lane, you have a divided road, you have parking on one side, you have signs, you have the trailblazers saying, yeah, this is a highway, there's where you go to 31, there's where you go. You're telling everyone that this is a road to go fast. Independent of you have crosswalks and you have whatever you put there, the fact that it's being connected in 31 to Three Oaks Road is gonna be a speed. I just can't imagine you guys thinking any of the highways, Three Oaks Road going through in front of your street or your street. You wanna prove that, but it was approved. So I think that raised crosswalks should be all across New Haven because everything is being concentrated on the low part of New Haven Drive. So once you pass the last one on the park, you can speed all the way you want to the end until you reach Georgetown. So if we're talking about speeding, and currently we don't have any problem with traffic in New Haven Drive. I've been living there for 25 years. There's no problem with speeding. There's no problem with need to calm traffic. It's just because it was connected to 31. So you created the problem, and you're trying to solve the problem and telling us, yeah, this is the great solution. First, you have had to listen to the community. Now, I agree that the race crosswalk on the park, on Hoffman Park should be the one because there's a lot of people crossing there to the park and walking dogs. The one in front of New Haven Drive, that park is less utilized. I agree with that, but I think also when they say new truck on the sign, when just before the roundabout that's gonna be transformed, I think there should be a raised crosswalk as well there, because that will tell the users at the very beginning that they're gonna have to slow down because they're gonna start finding things. So I encourage to place one at the very entrance of New Haven Drive. The second thing that I will request is the portion of the road from the new subdivision until the roundabout in front of the retention pond, that should be narrower as well. That will make traffic slow down. If the designers, I'm an architect, the designers can take a look of those studies, and I have been in England and have noticed those things. No matter where you go, once the road narrows down, you slow down. So that's something that to consider is to making in some areas of New Haven Drive, just narrow it down so you actually have to slow. I think that the trailblazers should be removed because that's another indication that this is a road to go fast. So I recommend ask to remove it. If you want to keep the neighborhood appearance, don't put things that doesn't belong in a neighborhood. You won't put one of those in front of your houses, on your street. So if you want to tell us, the resident of this area, that you want to keep this as a residential neighborhood street, that's not that. That doesn't tell that. Think about leaving this happening in front of your houses and make decisions based on that. How that will affect you. The lady there was selling her house and she couldn't. I also know other cases similar. They play the house for selling and they can't because this decision, crazy decision that was made, not thinking and not listening to the community. And this proves that the community had the reason, but you didn't listen.
All right, thank you
so
for your
much.
comments. We'll go, like I normally do, we'll go row by row, asking people to come up for their comments, starting with the first row here.
Hi, Chris Nagoda, 1370 Mulberry Lane. Could you please explain that chicane thing again? Or maybe put the slide up? Brian? No, the chicane. So can you please explain that again, how that's gonna work?
It's a traffic calming measure that does a lateral shift for vehicles. So as you're traveling through a travel lane, there would be a center median that would be constructed in the middle of the roadway. That would be a physical obstruction in the roadway that would require vehicles to shift from their lane of travel slightly to the right or left, depending which way they're going.
Okay, and is Sage or Stryker right there?
This image here is on the curve, the north end of the subdivision of a Stryker to the north of
Right,
that.
so you're passing Stryker and you're going into the first curve. So when you're talking about a raised island, I mean, is this just like how big is it? Because I can see, especially in the snow, you're not gonna know it's there. I mean, are you gonna put like landscaping or something in the middle of it? So that people don't drive onto it by accident?
Yeah, the final design would have, need to be signage that would identify that there is a median in that location,
Just a sign?
and potentially landscaping as well to put in the final design of the.
I mean, personally, as you know, I'm against opening the road, but I would be against that for sure. And I agree, like the crosswalk by the park, maybe not really raised up, super high. I think that's about the only thing I agree with. I don't think you should mess up the rest of the road because it's already messed up by opening it up. But I think all these measures, if you are trying to do this in good conscience to appease us, I think you're just gonna screw up the road even more, my opinion. But I don't like this chicane. Once, one crosswalk by the park with the light and the roundabout where you come in. And the Trailblazer signs are gonna be on Georgetown and where else?
And Industrial.
Industrial.
And Industrial. So the Trailblazer signs aren't by our street. They're gonna tell those people to go down to Three Oaks so they don't come through New Haven, which is, that I agree with as well. So get rid of that chicane and. I'm
Well,
not doing it.
the chicane virtually just shifts the parking lane to a travel lane
I
and the
know,
travel
but
lane to the parking
when
lane.
you have a raised,
Looks like a center median.
I know, and people that have, in bad weather, especially snow, have driven up on them, you know, that's not good for your car. I've seen people hit the sign, you know, if you're gonna make something that's, you gotta make it substantial, otherwise just get rid of it.
Yeah,
Because
appreciate that.
I don't think it's necessary. You know, I know you're pulling all these solutions out, but we don't have to do every single one. That's my opinion.
Thank you. And, you know, just to address what Sergio had said before, we're doing a lot of this out of abundance of caution because that's what the residents had asked for us when we were doing this. The three different traffic studies that we had didn't indicate that we needed a lot of these things, but we listened to what the residents, their concerns were on these, and this is why we're bringing this, so that we're able to have a conversation about what you think is going to be the best for your your neighborhood.
But is this a done deal that you're gonna do all of them?
No, this is why, no, nothing is a done deal with this. Absolutely nothing. This is why we're having this comment area, so people can have a chance to ask us, and we have the developer here with their consultants to answer the questions. We'll go to the next, Michelle, you don't want to come up next?
How we know that you're gonna listen to us? You didn't listen when we asked not to open.
I'm going to ask you to refrain from talking from the seats, please. We'll go to the next, no comments? Next row? Martha? Next?
You guys seem to forget.
Could you wait till you get to the microphone, please?
You guys seem to forget when the townhomes have construction being done on the townhomes, cars have to park on the street. You are taking parking away from, for example, the first 8 buildings, that's 48 units. Average, 2 cars. That's 96 cars. So if someone gets home late, because they have to park across the street now, they can no longer park next to their unit. Another thing with that, you got groceries, you got kids, you gotta walk across the street and make sure your kids don't run across the street. You're not thinking.
How often are you doing construction?
We've been doing the construction at Cambria a lot.
Okay.
You got the landscaping trucks, there is painters, everyone had to move out. there is new driveways being put in.
Okay, thank you.
So, yes, there is a lot of construction. I guess you have not been down New Haven in a
I go down New Haven all the time.
Okay. And then the other thing is the roundabout that you're going to put at the end. So you're going to have 2 buildings have to go through the roundabout to get out. That doesn't make any sense.
All right, thank you for your comments. Go to the next row, please. None? The following row?
Rich Yell. I just wanted to address, you had that slide up with the curve on the northern end. Could you put that up
Sure.
again? Thank you.
You want the chicane?
Excuse me?
The chicane?
Well, actually, no. I wanted to discuss a possible raised crosswalk. And I understand the raised crosswalks for the park because you're looking at pedestrian traffic and such. I happen to live right off that curb. I happen to know what it's like because 7 o'clock Monday morning, my son has to, of course, see the garbage guy. And I know to go cross that street, I wait like 3 minutes for the traffic to pass by, and I have to sprint across the street. I think the chicane's fine, but if you move a raised crosswalk in the middle of the straightaway, cars see you. They come around that curve. They don't see you. We have to sprint across the street. In the middle of that curve, you have the chicane in one spot, but you could put a raised crosswalk because, remember, the mailboxes are across the street. People have to walk across the street. Yes, there's going to be less pedestrian traffic, but it happens to be what I would consider a danger zone. You're not talking about a straightaway. You're talking about the curb. And to me, that's dangerous. I know it's dangerous for my son. I was out there with him on Monday morning, and I saw what it was like, and I know what I had to do to get across the street. And that's not the first time, because I go out there with him every once in a while. We're not talking about an area where people can actually see you. They come around that curve, and it's, you have to be moving fast. That was just my suggestion on that.
So
I
you're
saying... I
saying...
understand you're talking about the 2 parks, but I'm talking about an area that's, again, it's not a straightaway. It's somewhat dangerous there because they don't see you, and sometimes you may not see them, depending on how fast they're going.
Can you go back to the slide with the chicane, and it shows it better, I think. Thank you.
Yes. See, so we're crossing the street in the unit, not by the chicane, but right next to the chicane, and there's more of a curve around here as well, and they come around that corner, they don't see us. I have to be running in case I don't see them. That's what we're looking at. And the mailboxes are also directly across the street as well for all the units. So those units can all use that crosswalk to get to their mailboxes as well. It's not just the park. I'm just talking about a dangerous area to cross the street.
Okay, that makes sense.
Would a feasible solution be like the chicane, like
and
you
the
do a
other
crosswalk
question-
in the chicane? Or just do one and not the other? Yeah, I guess you do that
just
too.
like one raised crosswalk, not by the chicane, but literally
Yeah.
by the other units, which is still in the middle of the curb, because what you're missing in there's, that's still curving around, it's still curving down towards Collins as you go out of that picture too. So it's a danger area.
Okay.
It really is.
You make a good point.
The other question I did want to ask, when we're talking about the speed, is the speed limit going to stay 25?
Yes.
Okay, that was one thing I wanted to know. And again, this isn't my area of New Haven, but just my other question is that traffic circle. I noticed Savoy is literally right off of that. Is that going to be an issue for the people that live on Savoy?
Can you go to that slide, please?
If you pull up that slide, when you pull up the slide, it might be a little difficult, but again, I think that's Savoy right there. Is that going to be a challenge? Because there's no stop signs, obviously, they're coming through that traffic circle. I don't know what your thoughts were on that. Because if that's just like a roundabout and they just keep flowing through, or do you actually make them stop? I mean, I know that may be a pain in the neck, but Savoy seems awfully close to that traffic circle.
Well, that's something that we
Just
can
my comment
evaluate.
on that.
No,
So,
yeah.
that'll be it. Thank you.
Sure. Next.
Hello, Ryan Hewlin, 1174 Cimarron Drive. I think the proposals from tonight, at least from my perspective, seems to address most of the concerns that I had. I'd like to reinforce the ask for like a northern crosswalk there, looking like west of New Haven Drive, just growing up in D155 schools. Lots of kids that also went to, like Canterbury, whatnot, and then also Hannah Beardsley that had lived on that side of the road that did want to go to Cambria Park off of Collins Drive. And I think that, it's a little unreasonable to have them be crossing around that bend without any crosswalk there. Of course, the alternative being they go all the way south, which I don't think is a great solution. This is maybe less about the actual traffic calming, but if we're narrowing these lanes, had we considered bike lanes or anything like that to make it a little bit more functional? And I think that's just the other last item that I had. So
There's an existing bike path there already.
So we consider that the sidewalk there wide enough for the bikes.
Well, we wouldn't encroach on the roadway because it's just enough for what, we don't want to reduce any more parking. We want to make sure that the traffic can move at a.
Okay. Yeah.
So we're not going to add a traffic, or like we did on Cimarron, or we did on Georgetown, we added a bike lane, and like we did over in.
Yeah, I was just
Hillhurst,
curious if there was room for it or not. If there's no room
for
it.
that.
Okay, of course. Yeah, I don't want to limit the parking any more. As part of the initial effort to, hopefully, not have this development, connect through. I've kind of accepted that piece already. I talked to a lot of residents down Cimarron, closer to where Cary Algonquin Road is. A lot of those folks are concerned about, maybe some cut-through traffic that could start happening all the way up Cimarron, and then possibly through residential streets, such as the western end of Cimarron, Geneva Lane, and then also Collins Drive. Have we considered another Trailblazer sign potentially at, it would be, I think, Cimarron and Georgetown Drive, pointing to the north as you're traveling? I guess that would be west down that road. It's right off
Georgetown
where those,
and Cimarron.
Yeah, Georgetown, Cimarron, right off where that the soccer
by
fields are on the right hand side
Caper
there.
Park, okay.
Yeah. Have you considered another one just pointing, towards on Georgetown to the right, towards that Three Oaks Road?
It's absolutely something that we consider. I don't know if it works well in an interior intersection. They're more made to prohibit that type of traffic coming through a neighborhood. And one of the reasons that I think it's a great idea, the traffic circle that they're doing, if people choose to come through there in residents, I know I've already talked to many of the residents that live over there, think that they're fine with all this now. That this will, there's going to be some people that don't want it. I get it. I totally get it. There's a lot of things that we're trying to do to mediate these things, but that's going to slow traffic down, and it's going to identify that people are moving into a residential neighborhood. They're not moving through a through street kind of a thing. So that mitigates that.
I think the Trailblazer sign he's talking about, though, is when you're headed west on Cimarron and you get to Georgetown, on Cimarron, the sign should point to the right.
Yeah,
31.
instead of saying...
I know, because you can continue to Cimarron, then you hit, and you kind of have to go around to Collins and come back out.
Yeah, with how we classify these
Cimarron,
roads,
okay, Cimarron and...
Cimarron headed westbound before you get, as you get to Georgetown, there should be a
So we're going westbound.
Yeah.
Okay.
To go.
Okay, that's
Correct?
fine.
Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
relatively, I feel
Simple.
cheap way to
Yes.
mitigate the traffic down those residential roads. Okay, so those were the 3 items, and then just reinforce the crosswalk ask, whether that's replacing the chicane, a crosswalk and a chicane, if that's even a thing. I don't know. I'm not a traffic engineer. So yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks. Next row.
evening. My name is Megan Rashinsky. I'm at 124 Savoy. Could you clarify 3 things for me? Where the raised crosswalk is by the park, will that have the flashing lights for children to cross?
Can you go to that please?
Thank you. Will that be going into the park? Will that have lights that blink for kids to cross? Why? Because those are children crossing, and that should be the first thing that we have considered, is that those kids cross to that park. That's the only way that they're going to have to cross to it. Could that be a consideration that you all make? That when those kids cross, they're able to hit that button to cross, and those cars have to stop? That's number 1. My second question is, were there ever thoughts to put stop signs along New Haven? Additional.
There was consideration for doing that, but after the analysis, Chief Hayes might be able to back us up on this, but that just increases more speeding. People come to a stop sign and then they accelerate fast and they move forward. A slower, with the narrowing of the lanes, it's going to slow down the traffic as it is. By adding additional stop signs where it's not warranted, just increases the chances of speeding.
And the cross traffic at the intersections isn't high enough to trigger and meet the warrants that are established for always stop control.
Which
that was
leads me to my street, where you had the circle. We'll call it the roundabout. I don't care if you call it a circle, it's still a roundabout. Those are 3 driveways that dump into it. That's a concern for those people that have to live there. But I'm going to be turning left for my life out of that street. So is there a consideration to make that a 4-way stop and not a circular? Because there's no way that turning left out of there is going to be safe for anybody. Those are my concerns, because now it's impacting my home.
Okay, well, these are things that we need to hear.
Forrester Faya, 1527 Summerhill Lane. I have a question about something that happened before first. Carey Lake, is that the one behind Walgreens?
Yes.
Okay.
No, that's
Where's
J.C.
Carey
Park.
Lake then?
Where Carey Lake is over off of Clausen, it's the reclaimed gravel
So
pit.
Rotary Park.
Yes, Rotary Park.
Okay. So then what's the one by Walgreens then called?
I believe that's
That's J.C. Park.
Okay. Okay. No, it makes
That's
sense.
why we named Carey Lake, because everybody wanted a piece of whatever. So we have a J.C., we have Rotary, we have.
I thought it was Rotary Lake, but I guess.
Well, it's Carey Lake at Rotary Park.
Okay. Good thing. Thank you for putting this up. So, where the Trailblazer signage is, it's a one-way stop, and you said that you need the threshold to get to a certain point to have 4-way stops, and I think trucks can go down. What is it? Industrial, make the right and then the left to get into Sage, so they're not making a left out of Industrial. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That is correct, yeah.
Truck traffic is restricted on Georgetown south of Industrial Drive.
Okay. And it's the same for Cimarron coming in westbound?
Yeah, there's no truck.
Yeah, there's no truck traffic allowed.
So there's only a one-way stop there, and so it is kind of dangerous. But since the police station's there, I assume that's the deterrent. Am I correct? Besides the crosswalk.
Yeah, and crossing to the park. I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
But I mean, I've been back there for 20 plus years, and yes, there is, when people don't stop, and they're turning right onto, and you're there, especially if it's like a UPS truck or FedEx, they turn wide. So, and they're coming full bore, making that right turn onto New Haven. So, I don't know if you're moving the lane more to the right, but the fact that there's no stop sign for them to stop, and then you have an organized way, because sometimes I have to pull over to the right because someone's coming barreling down and turning wide, and they're turning wide into a larger lane, what they think is a larger lane. Right, so, and I know coming out of the parking lot from the soccer, there's never been a stop sign there. And those people come in and out of there, they don't even stop. You know, they come out and, they cut people off. Or if I go, somebody will turn right. You know, someone comes right out of there. So to me, that can be dangerous with more traffic, and if it meets the threshold. And maybe at some point, the traffic through there is going to meet the threshold for stop signs, because I think that's going to be the biggest deterrent. I understand what you were saying about that people are going to speed in between stop signs, but then the crosswalk, they're going to speed for, what, 3/4 of a mile to a mile? Maybe even more from that raised crosswalk to Georgetown. Is that there's nothing else, there's no deterrent other than a speed radar that I assume isn't going to the police station. It's just like, I'm going.
Funny you should ask. We're embarking on a new software program that will help us with all the traffic enforcement through the entire community. We will be able to tell every length of road how many cars and what speed they're going at what time. So,
I mean, I know that you can just have a cop at the bottom of the hill.
And the speed
which will
radar
deter a
signs
lot
that
of
are
people,
now, the signs that are there now are capturing all that data too.
Okay.
So we know if there's excessive speeding, you know, how many cars are going by there. We're gathering all that data now. But what we're going to be approving in our next budget is a software program that will overlay our entire community. So when people come in and say that they're speeding on my street, we're able to pull this up on the software program, and it'll tell us exactly how many cars are going, what time they were there, and what their rate of speed is. So that's going to help us with all these things. And when the traffic engineers were evaluating this, they took that into consideration too. They've looked at the studies that we've had before. We've done many studies on this road, and it has never been identified as a high traffic, high speed roadway. It just hasn't.
New Haven, correct, because it's residential, right?
Well, if anybody's speeding, it's residents back there.
Or guests, yeah.
Yeah.
Or guests who don't know what,
Right.
I mean, it's the same with industrial. And then who's paying for all this infrastructure between Georgetown and
all the new things, the traffic calming measures are being paid for by the developer.
Okay. All right. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Just one other item, if I may.
Sure.
We have heard from several residents tonight regarding the option of adding stop signs, and we've heard a couple thoughts on it. I personally live at a very, very busy intersection. One other thing to consider with added stop signs is the added noise. You know, when people are stopping right outside my bedroom window late at night, I got 1954 walls. They're very thin. When they speed up, even if they're not speeding egregiously, there is some level of noise. So maybe some of these other items that we're discussing could help mitigate additional noise that could be brought. Just an extra thought on that.
Thank you. Next.
Karen Hedberg, 1321 Geneva Lane. I just wanted to comment on the fact that, once again, this is great that you guys are focusing on traffic calming measures for New Haven Road, but once again, the obvious has been overlooked and ignored, and that is that the people that are going to use New Haven Road are the people who live on New Haven Road, and everybody else who lives in this neighborhood, all of Cimarron and the connecting neighborhoods of Cambria and Cimarron are going to cut through Geneva Lane to Collins Road, and there are no traffic calming measures shown in this. And so my concern is, what are you going to do about all the traffic that cuts through Main Street to Hampton Road to Cimarron, and Cimarron to Geneva to Collins, and everybody who's going to cut through that way? There's been no conversation about that. You continue to ignore the biggest problem that's going to happen. And I'm just going to comment again that you are opening a can of worms that doesn't need to be opened, and that is your choice. And you guys are going to be the ones that end up dealing with it.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to comment on this? Let's give somebody else that hasn't had a chance yet. Come on up.
Hi, Megan Miller. I'm at 385 Geneva Lane. So I want to make sure to give positive feedback as well as some critiques as someone who's really interested in traffic calming measures, just in general. I think the chicanes are hard to visualize, which is why you maybe gotten a lot of negative feedback. They're also not a very common thing that we've seen around, but I understand their use and their need, and I do think that they actually would be useful in this case to maximize parking while also being able to minimize. I really appreciate the narrowing of the lanes. I think that's something that needs to occur really in all subdivisions. Our streets are just way too wide, and that wide vision of field makes everyone feel safe, and they go like 40 miles an hour without even realizing it. Regarding the Trailblazer signage, I understand the use and the intention. I'm not a fan of how that's going to look in a neighborhood. I think it's going to look really out of place. Has anyone thought, or is there an intention of just no through traffic, right? Because like that's what everyone's concerned about is people are going to hit a wall of traffic on 31, pop a right at Walmart, and then come all the way out and pop out at Three Oaks Road. So, you know, that's an option to maybe hit that point, but not have so many like 31 here, 30, you know, that just looks out of place in our neighborhood. I'd also like to comment on the lack of infrastructure that feels like up at that straightaway where Collins Drives connects in that little bit of a C. I understand also the psychology of people slow down, so they speed up. Same thing with the speed bumps. However, whenever my family walk, we go down to Hoffman Estates, and we prefer to walk on the side with the bike path because it's wide enough that like between my husband and the stroller and the dogs, we can actually all walk next to each other instead of it being like a caravan on the narrow ones. And even right now, that doesn't even feel like a crosswalk. It feels like the sidewalk dumps you at the street and then you walk into someone's driveway. And so like, if we can't have a raised crosswalk, is there any way that we can have a bump out or something to bring people so that's a narrower crossway and also have like painted lines? Then that there's a logical like, oh, people might be here.
There will be painted
There's
lines.
going to be painted lines? Great, okay.
He's going to pull up that slide.
Oh, okay. I did not see the painting happening, so that's great. Okay. I think that was really it. It's really just, yeah, the lack of measures up by Collins is the only item that concerns me. It's a straightaway, and I understand the logic of the whole not wanting to put the physical barriers there, but also that's where I feel like most people will just gun it. So, yeah. Anyways.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anybody else who would like to make a comment? Come on up. What? Hold on, Sergio. Let's this young lady. She hasn't had an opportunity yet.
Hello, I'm Susan Clark at 1582 New Haven Drive. I live in the center of the circle where the three driveways are right in the middle of that. I'm sorry, but I just think it's a terrible idea to have, in my two buildings, our common way, there'll be 19 cars. I know the people that are in the buildings around me. There's 19 cars that are in the middle. I've never heard of a circle like that having multiple driveways in the middle of it. It's a little frustrating. There's no parking on either side. Obviously, during these projects, the circle and the street is where we have to park. Our circle's gone, so there's no parking in the circle. And one whole side of the street is no parking down there. So you have the length of 2 lots for 19 cars to park even relatively close to their homes. So continuing down, we're 4 buildings away. Coming home during, in the summertime when the weather's better, we do about 5 of those common driveways. Each summer, we repave them. So for days on end, this goes on, unfortunately. When things like that happen, when we can't park in our garages because they're repairing something on the outside of the building, they usually do a building at a time. So it's going to drastically change the way the board is, able to get construction done, because we can't displace 100 cars at a time anymore. You know, how are we going to get contractors that want to come in and, can you just do one at a time? That's not how they work. They come in, they rip, 5 of them out. You know, everyone's displaced for 5 or 6 days, and, they do it in stages on multiple properties at the same time. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Wondering if this traffic circle, can it be moved down so that the driveways aren't involved?
These are all good considerations. We'll put the team together to come up with some plans on this. I understand what everybody talks about all the construction and the maintenance, and I get it. I totally get it. But it doesn't happen all the time. You're talking about seal coating, that's like a day or two. If you're repaving and rebuilding the roads.
We seal coat about 5 every summer, and that's just usually 72 hours. People are off of their property. They can't drive up to their homes. We do about 5 of the common drives, repaving them each summer as well. So you figure, I know in my 2 buildings, there are 19 cars. I know all my neighbors. There's 19 cars that are displaced from one common drive, the center of that. We have no place to park.
Okay.
And then, just the safety aspect of it. We've got, we have to drive around. We're having cars coming from this way, cars coming from this way. We're yielding to traffic down New Haven. We're yielding to the traffic that's coming from the new neighborhood. It's just, I don't know.
Okay, we'll make note of your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else new? Sergio?
One last consideration, since the traffic is going to increase over New Haven Drive, obviously for obvious reasons. And one thing that we have been noticing is when New Haven Drive meets Georgetown, we only have, there are 2 lanes coming out of New Haven from Cambria. There should be an approach line running south in Georgetown, because there's a lot of traffic there. The radius to turn there should be wider, because you are parked there and you have buses or delivery trucks just hitting you because they don't have enough room to turn, because the radius from Georgetown into New Haven is so narrow that you may be hit. So either the radius is increased so a truck can properly turn, or there's an approach lane that facilitates that. With the increase of traffic, that's going to be becoming prone to accidents, because people are going to be speeding to get a shortcut to get over there. So that's something that should be considered, is improving the turn coming north from Georgetown into New Haven Drive. That corner should be revised, and any engineer of traffic would agree that for the traffic that's going to be coming, it should be a wider radius. It was before, but now with the conditions that have been created, it should be improved.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a quick question on that?
Sure.
So are we, and maybe I'm incorrect in my assumption here, I thought that we weren't going to allow large trucks turning onto New Haven. Am I correct?
Well, there's delivery trucks that are allowed.
Well, delivery trucks are not semis.
Right.
So we're not going to allow like a big semi coming on that road. We talk about having signs up there and everything like that. Am I correct? So you're
Correct.
talking delivery trucks. You could have Amazon. You can have FedEx. You can have, but those are
UPS.
not big, huge semis, correct?
Correct.
There's a weight restriction on Georgetown and New Haven Drive. So as you're traveling from 3 Oaks Road on Georgetown, trucks are allowed to basically access up to Industrial Drive,
Correct.
and then that ends the Class 2 truck route at that location.
Okay.
So the concern that the resident mentioned is at the intersection of Georgetown and New Haven for that right turn from Georgetown onto New Haven. It's a bit of a tighter radius from a standpoint of a bus example may have to make that maneuver, and sometimes we'll have to cross into the center line to make that turn.
Thank you.
So larger vehicles might not be a semi-truck, but it might be a bus or Amazon delivery, like a smaller type truck, may have more difficulty making that right turn.
Thank you.
And that's why you might notice in southbound Georgetown approaching New Haven, there's a striped center median as opposed to wider lanes in that area. And that was striped intentionally so that buses or FedEx deliveries or whatnot could encroach to that center striped area where there's no oncoming traffic in order to make that turn into New Haven as needed, specifically at the request for the bus drivers. That's why that is striped that way.
Thank you.
One more, we have, did you? Well, you guys have, come on, you're getting me in a good mood here. Come on up.
That one slide you had about where you're blocking off parking, can you put that one up again? Like up at the curve at the beginning?
Where the chicane is?
Well, there was something, yeah, I guess maybe that's it. So, okay, so I drive this road almost every day, going out, right? So when you're going around that curve, you've got the blocks off in front of the townhouses on this side.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got all that blocked off, which means the people are gonna park along the curve. So as I'm coming out, because it's always hard to see when there's cars on that side, on the right side, going around the curve. So if they can park over here, they're all gonna park over here. And when you're coming up to go around the curve to go out, because there's gonna be the cars parked on that side of the street, it's always hard to see when traffic's coming around the curve, because it comes quick, right? So I would really get rid of, don't have that no parking there, because that's gonna be a hazard, because even if it's just 2 or 3 cars, you're coming up, you're going around the curve, but you can't see the traffic coming this way. And that's just a disaster. And then in that area, I know we talked about the chicane, and there's already the radar, and then you're talking about a crosswalk, all kind of like close together. Do we need all of that? So the radar, those signs do make people slow down, because they don't know where that information's going. They make that slow down. I'm not a fan of that chicane. The crosswalk, does it even need to be raised? If the man was gonna use it, he's gonna press the button, it's gonna light up, and those lights, everybody stops for those lights. Well, they should. And then the roundabout where the woman was just talking about it, I agree, like with the driveways and the parking, do you even need to do the roundabout? If it's a given that road's gonna go through, just open the road like it was on the diagram. Do you even need to do the roundabout? Because you know how we all feel about this project, but now you don't want to make it worse on top of that. And I think a lot of these things, maybe in good faith, but it could be making it a whole lot worse for everybody. So please bear that in mind. Thank you.
Which is exactly why we're having this meeting.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, one more comment. Come on up, sir. Name and address again, please.
Forrester Fayed, 1527 Summerhill Lane. On the entryway coming north on 31, talk about Trailblazer signage, pointing 14 straight ahead, because at some point Google Maps, Apple Maps, all those maps are going to say, oh, save 5 minutes, go this way. But if you have a sign coming northbound on 31, it says 14 straight, before you hit that thing, before you hit that, whatever road that's going to be, maybe it's called New Haven, I don't know. That would deter.
It's not going to be called New Haven.
Whatever it's going to be called, but the one that goes into New Haven.
Right.
Deterring them from going forward. I know one of the main reasons you're doing this is, and I saw you had the gentleman from the fire department here, is to save time, right, for the fire department. I'd like to hear from him and see, not today, or what is better for him to have these bumps there, stop signs. How much time does it save to have stop signs? And related to stop signs, if you could reserve money for future stop signs, because at some point it's going to exceed the numbers that are there now. because everybody's always looking for a way to get to somewhere else quicker. Obviously, having Google Maps on your phone is the easiest way to do it, and they're always going to be looking for, and that's going to be a cutoff, and you're going to see a lot more traffic, I think, filter in through that way than you normally would expect. Look at what happened to Three Oaks. Three Oaks is jam-packed between like 3 and 5, either going towards 31 or going towards 14. It's jammed. I'm sure that was not in the plan when they first expanded that, right?
Well, 31 in Three Oaks?
31 and Three Oaks, and then 31 to 14.
Yeah,
it gets backed up.
It's a failing intersection. The state's, that's one of our
I don't
top
want-
4
but I don't want New Haven
intersections.
to be a failed intersection because we have the chance to do something now.
Right, I agree.
And I know that's why you're having this meeting, but let's reserve for the future. And we're gonna need stop signs because I know, I agree with your point that stopping and going, but we're talking about automobiles. We're not talking about trucks stopping and going. The noise factor is going to be people booming their music. That's more louder than stopping and going. But anyway, so yeah, I would love to hear at some point what the fire department thinks about getting back there, or the police department, because that's more important than a traffic study, because we're trying to save lives here of the people that are moving into the new development, right? So that should be part of your consideration. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you. I'm going to go out on a limb and say the fire department doesn't want raised walkways. Well, this is why we're having this meeting, sir. Nothing has been decided. Absolutely nothing has been decided. We're gonna take all your information that you have given us right now. We're gonna give it to their team, and we're gonna come up with a plan, and we'll represent. If you need to come up, please. Yeah, please come up to the microphone.
Kim Bennett, 1438 New Haven Drive. Thank you so much for considering these measures. I think it's appreciated. I do agree with the chicane. I'm a little concerned just based on where it is. We've had a lot of accidents in that area during the winter time. People have plowed mailboxes. They used to take out the pergolas. I just feel like it could be a little unsafe. Also, I was wondering, down by the Rotary, has there been any consideration of adding a Cambria sign over there so people are aware that they are entering a neighborhood? I know that
it
it's
hasn't been discussed, but that's
before.
something that we can put on the wish list.
Okay.
Because this is at the cost of the developer, and they're very cognizant of the fact that there's some people that didn't like it, and we're going to try to make it work. So we can throw that on the wish list as
Yeah,
well.
because otherwise you're seeing a Cambria sign, at the north end of New Haven, and you have one, I don't know where that is, Geneva, but you're not going to have one coming in on that side. At least it tells people you're entering a neighborhood.
I agree.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. One last time, anybody new that hasn't said anything? Anybody new that hasn't said anything?
I can understand now about the no raised pavements, but putting the roundabout in, yes and no, it may work, but have any of you ever tried plowing snow through them? Because they're not pleasant to plow snow through. So just throw that out there for the people that plow snow. But if you haven't experienced it.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll close public comment at 7:48. All right, does anybody on the board have any questions or comments about what's been said by the residents, or any ideas that you want to throw out to the development team for their consideration?
Yes.
I'll start with Trustee Presino. I'm going to go to my left.
You always go this way first.
I always go to. Yeah. All right. Do you want me to?
I'll make it quick. I get the sense from the public comment that those beacons are kind of a priority, and I said it before. I felt the same way. And if we can maybe mitigate or reduce, if we eliminate the chicane, maybe there's more budget for adding a beacon at each of these crosswalks. But I do think the flashing lights make a difference. That would be my only recommendation, is that where we are placing those raised crosswalks, whether it's 2 or we add a third one at the curve. I would like to see them with the beacons.
First comment I want to say is I want to thank everyone from the public that came out here, because we appreciate your comments, and we want to hear from you, and we want to see what we can do to mitigate whatever type of situations are coming up, because we do care whether or not all these items are needed or not. That's where we're going to the experts and trying to come up with ways to change things. So our first priority is safety. Safety of children, safety of our residents, and to try and address these things ahead of time. We're trying to be proactive versus reactive. To me, it's a much better decision when we have a developer that is willing to work with us in conjunction with us to pay for these mitigating measures, that we want to do that. I do have some concerns about if we have too much going on as well. I don't know if the answer is raised crosswalks or whether the beacons will work sufficiently. I live off of 3 Oaks Road. It's not raised, but there are beacons there. So we have to walk. I've always had to walk. My children are not little anymore, but we used to have to walk to an area where we could cross effectively. I want to make sure, cognizant of the parking. You know, we hear what you're saying. I think that the purpose of today is gathering information so we can come back with a better plan to address these issues and see what would be the best options to move forward. So again, I appreciate everyone's comments and that everyone is staying engaged, because I think that's the most important thing.
Thank you. Trustee Stefani.
I just had 2 questions. One, Brian, I think you said for parking measures, it was 86 spots?
186.
186. Correct.
Is that increased or decreased from what's currently there?
That would be a decrease, because there would be parking that would be eliminated on one side of the roadway. So from Georgetown Drive to essentially Savoy Drive, you would have parking for roughly 185 vehicles.
Okay.
Would be remaining after this plan.
Thank you. Last question. What is the difference of the raised crosswalks here and what was being proposed or talked about with Decker? Because we said no raised crosswalks at all on Decker, but now here it's okay to do it. So what has changed?
It's just an option. We're trying to put together mitigation that some of the residents were talking about before. So we're going to throw as much stuff up here to give people an understanding and an idea of what we're doing.
Can I make one comment about
Sure.
that? Because what I heard, and I think it was Director Morimoto said that you talked to Algonquin on Harrison. I've driven that way many times off of Black Hawk and done the bump, ba-da-bump, ba-da-bump. In fact, I broke a crystal vase in my car. But anyway, that's a sidebar. My point is, if it's not effective, and if the fire department doesn't want it, and necessarily the police department doesn't want it, and our public works doesn't want it, can we accomplish the same thing without having to do that portion of it? That's something I'd like us to look into and see if we can get the same thing accomplished in a different manner.
And I'll kind of reiterate what I mentioned at the previous conversations. We don't oppose the raised crosswalks, but we feel they're only appropriate in spots that have higher concentrations of pedestrians. So that's why Decker does not have, they cross kind of every intersection at multiple locations. There's not a single larger regional park, for example, that would drive a lot of pedestrians to one spot. That's why we did say if it was something the board wanted to consider here, the location at Hoffman Park by the pond seemed an appropriate one because of the higher draw to the park itself with the path, the lake, and Cary Lake and Rotary Park.
Okay.
Trustee Collier.
The circle, can you go to that slide, please? I understand what they're saying about the townhomes there. Why not leave the existing as it is and put the roundabout west more into the project? Why can't that happen, or why isn't that considered?
It was proposed to this location because you have the existing right-of-way is there. So moving it further to the west would impact potentially acquiring additional property to make that type of improvement.
Whose property?
It depends on where the circle will be moved to. Certainly with a traffic circle, you can have driveways accessing those intersections. It's a low-speed maneuver through that circle. So having driveways off of them is not atypical. If you move it further west from this location here, there may be impacts to the private property from either the Walmart property or the townhome development, directly in this location. So that's where, as we're working with the developer, they wanted to maintain that there's not property, because that would delay the process significantly to have to acquire property. Other location designs that we considered here was eliminating the cul-de-sac bulb entirely, and you just have the roadway design go straight, through that area. So you'd have just the intersection with Savoy, and it would be the driveways would be accessing New Haven Drive at this point.
We took that out of consideration, or we're still thinking about that?
The current plan is to convert it to the roundabout as proposed.
Could we move it and attach to Savoy, go down closer this way?
You'd have to acquire property to do so, because on the north, the the radius of the roundabout or the cul-de-sac bulb,
Larger.
if you basically take the circle and you move it to the east, it's private property on the opposite side of that bike path.
Okay.
So there would need to be property acquisition to make that work, and that would be an extra step involving process to acquire that parcel.
And you're also reconstructing storm sewers and subsurface utilities, not just asphalt at the surface.
Is it possible to get some sort of visual representation of what it might look like if we did the suggested elimination of the bulb and just created more of a straight street right there?
Can you put a center median in?
Yeah, I think, again, it's with the roundabout design you have here now, the driveways that have access to the roundabout would be able to circumvent that entire roundabout. So if they're leaving their property, they'd be able to utilize the roundabout to go eastbound on New Haven Drive. If you do a center median, certainly is a physical barrier you can construct there, that would restrict their ability to go eastbound without exiting their driveway. You have a barrier there that would forcefully force them to go westbound every time. And then coming back into the property, they would have a limiting ability for them to turn left into their driveways as well. That's why the roundabout was the proposed design in this location.
Okay, move on from the roundabout.
At
George,
that's another, with this versus the lateral shifts and chicanes you have in the front of the subdivision, this is essentially a lateral shift here. Is if you're exiting or entering the subdivision, you are going around that circle in the center of the island, or the round cul-de-sac area, so it forces a vehicle to maneuver around that and slow down. That's why it's proposed at this location.
Okay, so I'll ask the question is, we're doing this because it's the most effective way to slow traffic? There's no other more effective way to slow the traffic without disrupting the driveways that are there?
In this location, this is probably the best design or method you could utilize for having a lateral shift that would help slow traffic through that location.
Okay. Next question is, we're talking about stop signs and not adding stop signs. My question is, why at New Haven and Georgetown now, why is there only one stop sign at New Haven and everybody else on Georgetown Georgetown doesn't have to stop? It doesn't meet the criteria for a three-way or four-way stop there, considering the people from the park don't stop at all either.
I'm going to look into that.
Yeah, that needs a sign.
Cross-traffic volumes in past studies have not shown it matched it or met the warrant, but we obviously will keep reevaluating to see if it does.
Okay, I'll ask later what the criteria is. So for the crosswalks, the raised, they're kind of a pain. I think they should be lighted. I think we should add one at the bend coming in on New Haven at the top. It needs one. Why can't we do them like they are at Main Street for the Briargate crossing with a center?
We reviewed that in the last presentation before as well. We could look at those, but the problem there is there's the frequency and the close spacing of driveways. So if you introduce a center median, you may inadvertently force someone that is overlapping that median to have to go past their driveway, turn around into somebody else's driveway, and then come back because their median would block their access. you don't have a lot of open areas where there's no driveways on either side.
I think they all should be lighted, and I think we should add a third at the top on that bend for sure, because it is a blind spot on top of it, and there's people crossing their mail. There's a lot going on there.
Trustee Dudek.
Oh, okay. All right. I echo a lot of the same comments as my fellow board members, but I do have a few other thoughts as well. So, first off, I think that, well, if you can share it, do we know what the approximate cost of what's presented to us tonight is?
I haven't. No.
Okay.
The developers.
You don't have to share it now since we don't know it offhand, or at least the staff doesn't know it offhand. I completely agree with, I think it was, I might have his first, is it Forrest that mentioned a comment I had written down even before you mentioned that when I look at this, this reminds me in a much bigger spot of the conversations we had when we approved the temporary Burger King thing many years ago with signage all over the place. This, to me, if I lived in New Haven, I would hate the signs more than I'd hate the increased traffic. Too much. But to points that were made by a variety of people, we might have problems in other areas down the road. We just don't know. I would strongly suggest that the developers share with staff what their budget for doing this is, since they've come up with this plan, correct? This is their plan? Okay. We may not want all these things, but we might want to save some of those dollars for other areas down the road. I think that the fact that we don't know what this budget is surprising, but I would like to find out what that is sooner rather than later. I hate the Trailblazer signs. Hate them. I think that if I'm in a residential area, I don't want anything indicating go to Route 14 anywhere near my house. So I don't like those things at all. I think we should have 3 or 4 flashing crosswalks. I do think that we should have a raised crosswalk, 1 at Hoffman Park, because that is the biggest pedestrian, kid-friendly area in this whole neighborhoods. I do think we should have, not only because of input today, but I felt this way before, 2, possibly 3 other flashing crosswalks, not raised, throughout this street. The traffic circle. Traffic circle, obviously, everybody now recognizes that's going to be a concern. To do it right, I don't think we're going to solve the issue here. We have experts on traffic sitting here. We have several experts on in our village staff that are traffic experts. I think that there should be a lot of thought given to how we handle that, because I don't think the circle as proposed tonight is anywhere near what I would envision as an acceptable alternative. So those are things that I can remember off the top of my head. Now I want to go to some of the things I wrote down just to verify that I don't miss anything for you guys. I echo Trustee Collier's comment about the 3 or 4-way stop sign at Georgetown and New Haven. That is almost a given. And I also wonder, at that corner, that's the west side of Georgetown, just north of New Haven. That's is that detention rather for?
It's owned by Stryker.
I'm not suggesting we necessarily do it, but that might be a good area if we wanted to make a right turn lane or something like that, to take some of that property, which is never going to be developed for housing or anything like that. And God knows in my 23 years here, I've never seen it flooded. So just something to think about. But I think at the end of the day, because I did cover all my topics, so my memory's not completely gone yet. At the end of the day, this is a good start. In my mind, it is far from what's acceptable. And I would encourage the developers and village staff to get together, talk a lot more about these options, but then also share with the board, once we know what their budget for this is, share that with us so we can sit back and say, some of these things are going to work. And I think some of the folks from the area suggest some of those things are going to work, but they also hate other ones. So, we don't want to solve or cause a problem that, as one woman said several times, and I agree with 100%, we don't want to cause an additional problem that wasn't there before. And some of this looks like it might be doing that. So I think there needs to be more thought given about that. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks. Just briefly, I agree with a lot of what community said and the trustees. We're done with public comment, sir. Pardon me? Yeah, after. I'd be happy to talk after, but we've got to move this along. I had mentioned before, the traffic circle is going to be a concern. I've always said that, and we will look at this. As a matter of fact, my traffic engineer, village administrator here is already drawing out other designs. So this is something that we could work on. This is why we're having this meeting, is so we can get your input. We don't live in your neighborhood. This is why we want to make sure that we're listening to what your thoughts are. I think the one crosswalk going to Hoffman Park is all that the raised is what we would need. And then the two other crosswalks with illuminated signs, really nicely striped, because you can see, I go through some of these other communities that you can identify how these walkways are. Not just a single stripe, the lines, but a nice, effective way, maybe with additional landscaping or something around there. But the chicane, I know some people don't like the chicane, but I've talked to a lot of my other mayor friends, and they work really well for traffic calming. It swifts. It's because it's a change. They're going to slow down for a change. So that's something I'd like to consider as well. But we learned a lot. There's some other things that we are going to put into our basket and figure these things out. And this is like Trustee Dudek had mentioned. This is far from over. We have not made any decisions. This is why we wanted the input from the people that are going to be impacted the most. So I think that staff has got enough information with working with our development team to come up with a plan that we can all live with and we all feel comfortable about. As Trustee McAlpine had said before, our first and foremost objective is public safety. We're going to make sure that it's done right, period. And I know that what I'm going to say is I'm going to get a lot of oohs and ahs, whatever, but the original traffic studies that have been done doesn't warrant a lot of this. But we as a board took it upon ourselves to make sure that we're going to do some things that we feel that will make an impact positively with this community. I think that we're on the road to success. I think that we've got some great positive, very professional feedback, which we appreciate. And we'll be in touch. We will let you know how this thing progresses. The development team is going to want to look at these things. They're going to get with their engineers, with our staff, and we're going to come up with some refined measures as discussed by the residents and the village board. So thank you very much. We appreciate this. I know this has been a long process, but we don't want to do anything hastily. So we will take our time to do this. Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned at 8:08.